The night it happened, America was watching. A sudden burst of gunfire captured on camera would change the course of political debate and national security conversations overnight. The footage was raw, unfiltered, and undeniable, the moment when a public figure, Charlie Kirk, became the target of violence. What shocked investigators even more, however, wasn't just the shooting itself, but the discovery of additional gunfire immediately after the suspect, Tyler Robinson, pulled the trigger. The images left viewers speechless, investigators scrambling, and a nation divided. Was this a lone act of violence, or a signal of something far more organized and dangerous? Tonight we retrace every second of that night. From the chilling camera footage to the courtroom where answers are still being demanded, and the political firestorm that erupted in its wake. This isn't just a crime story, it's a reflection of a country wrestling with the fragile line between speech, influence, and violence. And at the center of it all, one question remains: why did Tyler Robinson pull the trigger, and what do the cameras really reveal? Before we dive into this story, remember this is Detective Kate True Crime, a channel that stands for justice and giving every case the attention it deserves. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our investigations. And don't forget, share your thoughts and theories below. Every clue counts. Breaking news footage stopped Americans in their tracks. On a night that seemed routine, cameras captured a moment that would soon dominate headlines nationwide: the sound of gunfire erupting in a crowded public space, and the shocking image of Charlie Kirk caught in the chaos. But what the footage revealed next left investigators stunned. Seconds after Tyler Robinson was seen pulling the trigger, additional gunfire rang out, raising even more disturbing questions. Was this a calculated attack? Was Robinson acting alone, or was there something bigger at play? The camera footage became the nation's most scrutinized evidence, dissected frame by frame, broadcast across every major network, and debated endlessly on social media. For millions, the questions only deepened. Why did Tyler Robinson fire? What pushed him to target Charlie Kirk? And what exactly does the footage really show? In this investigation, we take you through the footage, the investigation, and the courtroom drama that followed, a story that has left the nation searching for answers and bracing for the fallout. Charlie Kirk was no stranger to controversy. As the founder of Turning Point USA, he had become one of the most visible conservative voices in the country. His rallies drew massive crowds, his speeches sparked heated debates, and his media presence ensured that nearly everything he said or did made headlines. To supporters, Kirk was a defender of free speech and traditional values. To critics, he was a polarizing figure who thrived on confrontation. Love him or hate him, Charlie Kirk had influence, and with influence came attention, both wanted and unwanted. On the other side of this story stood Tyler Robinson, far less known but equally complex. Robinson's background revealed a young man who had been grappling with his place in society. Friends described him as private, sometimes restless, with strong opinions that often clashed with mainstream politics. His online presence hinted at frustration, late-night rants, and a growing obsession with figures like Kirk. Was it ideology that drove him? Personal resentment, or something more unstable beneath the surface? Before their worlds collided, Kirk and Robinson couldn't have seemed more different. One stood on stages with thousands of people chanting his name, the other lived mostly in the shadows, piecing together an identity online. But on that fateful night, those two worlds intersected in a flash of violence, and the nation would never forget it. The footage begins like so many others, shaky, handheld, the sounds of a crowd filling the background. Charlie Kirk stood at the center of the stage, speaking into the microphone, the audience's attention locked on him. The room was tense but orderly until the first crack of gunfire shattered the silence. Witnesses later described it as a moment when time slowed. Some ducked for cover, others froze in disbelief. A few screamed as security rushed toward the stage. Tyler Robinson, identified by police as the shooter, was seen on camera raising his arm and firing. The chaos was immediate, people dropping to the ground, trying to escape the crossfire. But what happened next left investigators stunned. Just seconds after Robinson's shot, the footage recorded the sound of additional gunfire, distinct, separate, echoing from another direction. The crowd's panic intensified. Even trained law enforcement officers on the scene later admitted they could not immediately determine whether Robinson was acting alone or if there were multiple shooters. One witness told reporters, "I heard one shot, then another, but from the other side of the room. People were screaming, running. I didn't know where to go." Another described the confusion. "It felt like it wasn't just one person. There was too much noise, too much chaos." Investigators combed the footage frame by frame, searching for clarity. Was the second burst a reflection, a misheard echo, or something more sinister? For days, theories circulated online: a second gunman, an accomplice, even a wider conspiracy. What was clear, however, was that in a matter of seconds, a political rally had transformed into a crime scene, and the questions raised by that camera footage would haunt the investigation for months to come. In the days that followed, investigators turned their full attention to the footage. Dozens of angles were reviewed: cell phone videos from the crowd, surveillance cameras from the venue, and even live stream recordings that had been broadcast online. Every frame mattered. What they found only deepened the mystery. The first shot, fired by Tyler Robinson, was clear, but the second burst of gunfire was harder to explain. Forensic experts analyzed the audio patterns, comparing echoes, timing, and trajectory. Some argued it could have been a reverberation, the sound bouncing from walls and amplifying the chaos. Others insisted the data showed two distinct sources. Police reports documented shell casings recovered near the stage, all matching Robinson's weapon. Yet witnesses remained adamant they had heard something more, something unaccounted for. Law enforcement officials gave careful statements. One officer told reporters, "We are confident Robinson was the shooter, but we are not dismissing the possibility that additional gunfire may have occurred." Legal experts weighed in, reminding the public that perception in chaos often differs from forensic reality. Still, political analysts saw another angle. Was this simply random violence by a troubled young man? Or was Robinson targeting Charlie Kirk for ideological reasons, with his actions symbolizing something far more dangerous? The footage, far from resolving the case, had become its own battlefield. In living rooms across America, the debate played out: was this a lone act of desperation, or the beginning of something larger? And for investigators, one question lingered louder than all the rest: if there truly was a second gunfire source, who pulled the trigger, and why hasn't anyone stepped forward? Tyler Robinson's arrest came just hours after the shooting. He was taken into custody without further incident, handcuffed and escorted under heavy security. The charges were swift and severe: aggravated murder, unlawful use of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. Prosecutors made it clear from the beginning they would pursue the maximum penalty. His first court appearance drew national attention. The room was silent as Robinson entered, his expression unreadable. Prosecutors wasted no time in painting him as a calculated threat. They argued he had intentionally targeted Charlie Kirk, describing his actions as politically motivated violence meant to send a message. They cited Robinson's social media activity, past writings, and the chilling clarity of the camera footage. But Robinson's defense told a different story. They portrayed him as troubled, unstable, a young man battling personal demons rather than executing a political mission. They hinted at possible mental health struggles, questioning whether Robinson even fully understood the consequences of his actions that night. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was heavy, family members of both men present, reporters filling every available seat, sketch artists racing to capture the moment. Outside, the debate was just as heated. Supporters of Kirk called for justice, labeling Robinson a domestic terrorist. Others warned against politicizing the case before all facts were clear. As the gavel struck and the first hearing adjourned, one thing was certain: this case would not just be about what happened in that room, but about the meaning behind it, and whether Robinson was a lone gunman or part of something far more unsettling. As the courtroom battles unfolded, the case spilled far beyond the walls of justice. Across the country, outrage erupted. To many, the shooting was not just an attack on Charlie Kirk, but an attack on free speech itself. Supporters of Kirk framed the violence as proof of rising extremism, arguing that political disagreements had crossed into dangerous territory. On the other side, critics pushed back. They warned against using one man's actions to stifle broader conversations. Some questioned whether Kirk's polarizing rhetoric had drawn the very hostility that fueled the attack. Social media became a battleground of its own. Hashtags trended, arguments raged, and the nation found itself split yet again. In the wake of the tragedy, Erika Kirk, Charlie's wife, stepped into the spotlight. For years she had stood behind the scenes of her husband's political career. But with Charlie incapacitated, Erika became a symbol of resilience and strength. She made emotional appearances, speaking to supporters, urging calm, and vowing that the movement her husband built would not be silenced. Analysts noted how swiftly the shooting became more than a criminal case; it became a cultural flashpoint. Was Robinson a symbol of growing extremism? Or simply a troubled man whose violence was being exploited for political ends? The debate underscored the fragility of the moment, a nation wrestling with its divisions, where every act of violence threatened to deepen the cracks. The fallout from the shooting spread quickly, igniting a nationwide storm of outrage, debate, and political tension. Within hours of the footage going public, commentators, politicians, and everyday citizens weighed in, each framing the incident through their own lens. Supporters of Charlie Kirk described the attack as an assault on free speech and democracy itself. For them, this was not just an isolated act of violence, but a symptom of rising hostility toward conservative voices. At vigils and rallies, they carried signs reading "Speech, not violence," and called for stronger protections for public figures who face threats simply for sharing their beliefs. But critics offered a more complicated perspective. Some argued that the nation should be careful not to use Robinson's actions as a political weapon. Others pointed out that Kirk's outspoken style had long attracted controversy, that his rhetoric, often sharp and polarizing, had made him a target. To them, the tragedy reflected not only the dangers of extremism, but also the toxic atmosphere created by political divides on both sides. Amid this storm, one voice rose above the noise. Erika Kirk, known previously for her quieter presence beside her husband, Erika suddenly found herself in the spotlight. She delivered heartfelt statements, thanking supporters for their prayers while urging the country to step back from anger and division. Her calm resolve struck a chord with many, transforming her into both a symbol of resilience and a new face of the movement Charlie Kirk had built. Analysts noted the split reactions. To supporters, Erika was proof that the mission would continue, stronger than ever. To critics, her emergence highlighted how even personal tragedy could become part of a broader political struggle. What became clear in the weeks that followed was that the shooting was no longer just a criminal investigation. It had become a cultural battle, one that touched on the fragile state of American politics, the limits of free speech, and the dangerous intersection of ideology and violence. In the end, one question still looms over this case: why did Tyler Robinson pull the trigger? Was it ideology, a deep resentment toward Charlie Kirk's politics? Was it personal instability, the unraveling of a troubled mind searching for an outlet? Or was it part of something larger, a signal of how fragile the line between politics and violence has become? For investigators, the evidence was clear enough to bring Robinson to trial. But for the nation, the meaning behind his actions remains far less certain. The camera footage showed us what happened: the gunfire, the chaos, the fear etched across the faces of bystanders. What it could never answer was the deeper why. The shooting left scars not just on one man and his family, but on a country already divided. It forced Americans to confront uncomfortable truths that words can carry consequences, that political passion can tip into extremism, and that violence is never far from the surface of public life. As Erika Kirk steps forward to carry her husband's work, the story of that night continues to ripple outward. Some see it as a cautionary tale of unchecked extremism, others as a warning about how we discuss politics in an era of anger and division. Perhaps the greatest reflection is this: justice may be served in a courtroom, but the deeper wounds, the fear, the mistrust, the division, remain unresolved. And until the nation reckons with those deeper divides, the question will always return: what drives someone like Tyler Robinson to violence, and how can we stop it from happening again?